we'll start with first one, which is the basic, I would say. What is relativism and why is it so popular nowadays, especially nowadays?
Yes. Okay. First of all, it's always been popular, and because it showed up in different forms over the years, and I think it actually goes back to the garden. But let me help with. I think it'll help just giving a clear kind of a definition or characterization of what relativism is. Okay, people have heard the word, but they're not quite sure exactly how it works. They bump into it all the time in conversations with people. So this is going to be familiar, but a lot of times they haven't zeroed in on exactly what it is. Okay. What relativism is an understanding of what it means when someone says that something is true. Some claim or statement or point of view. Oh, yes, that's true. Okay, what exactly do people mean when they say it's true? Now, this may sound like a pretty fundamental question. Why is this confusing? If I say it's true that I was on the show here with Vasile and did a thing, why, that means I was on the show with Vasile. Okay, and most people will understand it that way, at least initially. And what that response demonstrates is a very basic understanding of what it means for a thing to be true. That means it's the statement you made is actually accurate, right? Or another way of putting it is it's a fact. All right. So if it's true, if I say that I was on the show on January 4th with Vasile, and I was on the show on January 4th with Vasile, then my statement is true. Okay, there's nothing controversial about that, really. Not among ordinary people. In fact, this is the way we talk about truth all the time without even being reflective on it. When somebody said, "Hey, I got an A on my test today at school." Really? Is that true? Did you? Congratulations. What we mean by true there is that you actually got the grade. But I want you to see something very important about the way I just described the concept of truth there and the way we're all understanding it. We are understanding the concept of truth in light of something outside of us, outside of my feelings, outside of my mere beliefs, outside of my desires, outside of my preferences. When I say that it's true that I was with Vasile today on the broadcast, I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm not talking about what I like. I'm not talking about my preferences. I'm not talking about anything on the inside of me. I'm talking about something that happened outside of me. Okay. Now, this distinction is really, really important. It's actually the simplest way that I've discovered how to clarify what we mean by relativism versus an alternative view of truth called objectivism. Okay. Now, sometimes the terminology gets mixed up here. So let me just keep two terms in place: objectivism and subjectivism. Okay. So when I was talking about truth just a few moments ago in a way that everybody listening understands, I was making a reference to something outside of myself, something about the objective world, not something about my subjective beliefs, feelings, preferences, or anything like that. I was talking about something outside, the nature of the world. This inside-outside distinction is the simplest way of understanding the difference between objectivism and subjectivism. Okay, now subjectivism is just a synonym for relativism. All right, so I'm just going to switch words here for a moment because it'll make it easier. When I say something is true, the way I was talking about it a few moments ago, being on the show here with you, Vasile, I was talking about something outside of me in the world itself, our conversation here, that is objective. Therefore, that kind of truth is called an objective truth. It's the standard way we use the word. But nowadays, there's an entirely different way for people to use the word true. When they say something is true, they are not referring to anything outside of themselves. They are not referring to anything out there in the world, nothing in the objective world. They are referring to something inside of them, inside of the subject, which is why they call it subjective. And what they are saying is, truth is whatever I believe, whatever I feel, whatever I say, whatever I like. So subjective truth is completely self-focused. Okay? Now, here's a perfect example of that. What does it mean to be male or female? Does it have anything to do with what's outside? That would be this physical form of one's body? Or does it have to do totally on what's on the inside? Well, you know the answer. I can see you smiling there, because nowadays it has nothing to do with what's on the outside. It has nothing to do with the objective world. It is completely dependent on the subjective point of view. So it doesn't matter what my body looks like. If I, Greg Koukl now, who just for the record is male, if I, Greg Koukl, think or believe I'm a female, then I am a female. It is true that I'm a female. Now, notice I'm using the word true now in a very different sense than I was earlier. Earlier, I was using true to describe a fact of the outside world, the external world. Now I'm using the word true to describe something inside of me, a belief or a preference. And by the way, notice that if I say it's true that I'm a male today, inside, tomorrow I could change my mind and the exact opposite thing could be true, that I'm actually a female. What change has there been in my body? None. I'm not talking about my body. I'm not talking about the outside. I'm talking about the inside. Okay. Now, this inside-outside distinction, I mentioned this a moment ago, I just want to repeat it, is the difference between subjectivism or relativism and objectivism. That's why people say, when you ask somebody, is this true? They will often respond by saying, yes, it's true for me. Okay. So let's just take an ethical issue, abortion. Is abortion right or wrong? Now, notice the question is meant to discover something about the act of abortion itself. But notice how people will respond. They'll say, well, it's maybe wrong for you, but it's not wrong for me. Okay. So I ask a question about the objective moral status of abortion, and they respond by giving the subjective point of view, which is the relativistic point of view. Relativism is when truth is determined by what's inside the subject, not what's outside in the world. Okay. Now you can see, by the way, not only the tremendous appeal to this, Vasile, you can see the appeal because people, it's completely self-centered. It's completely, especially when it gets pushed very far, it becomes very narcissistic, which means it's very much self-centered, self-love. It's all about me. And of course, this is so obvious in the gender debate. Why must you use pronouns that the other person wants you to use? Because you'll make them feel better. It's all about them. It's all about making them feel better. And so it's all about their feelings and not interfering. It's all self-centered. Now, I mentioned that this idea of relativism, truth is on the inside, not on the outside. This goes all the way back to the garden. Because if you think about the temptation there in Genesis chapter 3 and what took place there, God is on the outside. He's in the actual world, the objective world. He has made the world a certain way. And then he gives instructions regarding behavior for our first parents, Adam and Eve, because of the way he made the world. And what does Eve do? She's tempted to disobey. What's the basis of the temptation? This food, this fruit looks good to eat. It looks like it might taste good. Also, it could give me wisdom, and I will be like God. Notice that the emphasis there is on the internal desires and truths, if you will, not on what God said and the way God made the world on the outside. And of course, when they gave in, it had a terrible effect on them and all of mankind. So, that were the results of that. That was the result of the disobedience. And that kind of thing has been going on for a long, long time. What matters to me, my truth is the most important thing, not what matters to God and God's world and God's desires. All right. By the way, I don't know how people would respond now because I haven't asked this question a lot, but almost every time you see it in movies all over the place and in conversation discussions, somebody might say to a parent, well, what do you want for your child? What do you want for them? I mean, maybe it's a little tester I could tell you. What do you think most of them say?
I think they will say that it feels good or something.
Yeah, I want them to be happy.
Be
I
happy
want
also.
them to be happy. That's the standard way. I want them to be happy. I want something subjective to be going on that's good inside them from their perspective. And that's why if some sexual desire that they pursue makes them happy, then that's okay. Notice the focus is on what's on the inside. Okay. Now I have one person. This is a professor, actually, the president of Hillsdale College. Arndt is his name, last name Arndt, Professor Arndt. Anyway, his daughters said to him, "I want to be happy," and he said to them, "You're too young to be happy. You can't be happy until you're good. And what I want you to be is good, and the happiness will flow from that." Right? It's like I think C.S. Lewis said something like, if you pursue, how did he put this? If you pursue God, you get happiness. If you pursue happiness, you get neither. Something like that. But I'm only mentioning these because you can see how deeply ingrained in the culture the whole concept of self-satisfaction is. And now it's become, I'm getting all animated here. I hit my microphone. And now it's become a massive idol. The entire culture is given to this. And all it is relativism. It's the subject that matters and what that subject believes that makes anything true. That's the true for me. And this influences all kinds of areas now, even, areas where you never thought it would influence science and all kinds of stuff. So there's a quick tutorial on the concept of relativism, also known as subjectivism.
Yeah, thank you very much. At the beginning before the live show, I was wondering if we will be managed to fill the time, because I was thinking you will answer fast to the questions. And now only on the first question we spent like 26 minutes. Okay, so that's maybe after you write the book on this subject, you have a lot to say.
Well, I have in the tactics book, I discuss this issue too, the one that you held up. I also have a new book called Street Smarts, and I don't think any of these are available in Romanian. I'm not sure, but the Street Smart just came out in September, and it's called Using Questions to Answer Christianity's Toughest Challenges. And it's kind of a follow-up, a sequel to the tactics book. All right. But I have a whole chapter where I really go into detail about this so that people can understand it. It's very easy to get confused on it, especially the way language is used nowadays. But once you see it, Okay, once you see how it works, you can see it everywhere. Okay, objective truth is just another word for fact, a fact of the outside world. Subjective or relativistic truth is that truth is determined by what I feel or I believe.